Right. Trump says Iran is playing nice as he lines up a potential ground invasion. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. The president indicated we are moving quickly into a new phase in the war with Iran, posting that his negotiating team is now working with a new and much more reasonable regime to end military operations, as 20 ships were allowed through the Strait of Hormuz early on this week. Happening as we speak, we understand. But also quickly noting, the president, that if something does go sideways, if there's no deal and the Strait of Hormuz isn't fully opened immediately, Trump says the U.S. will leave Iran after obliterating the regime's electricity plants, oil wells, Karg Island, where they distribute all the oil, and even threatening Iran's desalination plants, crucial for fresh water in the arid Middle Eastern nation. Trump saying this loud goodbye would be our retribution for 47 years of terror and the many Americans and soldiers that have been butchered. On Air Force One last night, the president claiming cautious optimism for a deal.
We've had very good negotiations today with Iran, getting a lot of the things that they should have given us a long time ago. We'll see how it works out, but they're very good, moving along very nicely. But we destroyed many targets today. It was a big day. And we are negotiating with them directly and indirectly. We have emissaries, but we also are dealing directly. We're doing extremely well in that negotiation, but you never know with Iran because we negotiate with them and then we always have to blow them up.
Okay. Trump remaining very cautious in that optimism. Again, Iran would be very likely to feign some kind of capitulation in this moment just to wiggle out of a moment like this, looking for any possible way that some pieces of this regime can survive until this presidency is over, kind of like an animal playing dead until the predator is gone. Rubio, less convinced that Iran's terror regime will willingly change on its own. Take a listen.
Look, there's some fractures going on there internally. And at the end of the day, I think that if there are people in Iran who now, given everything that's happened, are willing to move in a different direction for their country, that would be great. But we also have to be prepared for the possibility, maybe even the probability, that that is not the case.
Wording there is what mattered. Rubio indicating the presence of fractures, that shows good signs, right? But saying there's perhaps a probability that whatever's left of this regime will not abandon its radical Islamist ideology and turn towards the West to govern itself. The blind devotion to this barbaric iteration of Islam is exactly the reason why this regime has got to be decimated. Again, how can you leave these people in charge of a country with a rapidly expanding ballistic missile program and nuclear ambitions? That's what we've had for the last several years. They'd rather die than relinquish their power. They'll happily die to kill Westerners, brainwashed into believing that they're going to receive 72 virgins in heaven. You cannot have people like this, lunatics like this, controlling a country of 90 million people and arming itself to the teeth.
Look at this region. Every single terrorist group in this region has a link to the Iranian regime. Every single one. These people are lunatics. They are insane. They are religious zealots who can never be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon because they have an apocalyptic vision of the future.
To all the critics, again, a reminder why this is happening, why this is important. And with that, we move on to reporting that the Pentagon is preparing for a possible weeks-long ground invasion into Iran, which the president calls just an option for now. 3,500 more troops have arrived as the USS Tripoli has moved into place. The Wall Street Journal reporting on a uranium extraction plan going to the nuclear sites where Iran is hiding the fruits of its nuclear program and pulling that uranium out of the country. That's complicated. We're told that the uranium that Iran holds would fit into about 50 scuba tank-sized canisters, although stabilizing it for extraction makes it even far more complicated. As the president weighs options to try and neuter the most dangerous regime in the world, the party of the Iran nuclear deal, which has been exposed now as the most pitiful deal the U.S. ever entered into, the people that gave us this situation to begin with, the people that paid for all of this uranium, all of these nuclear plants, all of this ridiculous behavior from Iran, those same people are now rooting for Iran to win because it's politically beneficial to them. Think of that. The Democrats in this country so despise the president on the other side that they quite literally hope the most evil regime in the world can outlast him, can survive this operation simply because it'll be better for their politics. Here's one of them.
He realized, oh my God, I've got a financial cataclysm on Monday. So he just made it up that they're in negotiations with the Iranians. Look, underneath that statement, the Iranians have now realized that they have the reins. They are controlling the Strait of Hormuz. Gasoline prices are up more than $1 a gallon. And so the Iranians realize, holy smokes, we've got a lot of leverage here.
Yeah, they're playing sound bites like that in Tehran. I'm sure the regime loves to hear stuff like that. That's the reality of politics today. There's so much hatred for Trump that they're cheering for Iran. Rest assured, Democrats are hoping this fails. They're hoping oil prices skyrocket even further. They're hoping ships in the Persian Gulf are bombed. They want Iran to win this so that they can win here in the United States, and Trump will look bad. You can oppose the president's tactics and a decision for war without rooting for the most dangerous, despicable Islamist regime in the world. That is possible. Somebody should tell these people that. Stephen A. Smith dabbles in a lot of politics lately. He was on Bill Maher's show Friday night, slamming the Democrat response after acknowledging this threat for decades.
You got a lot of damn nerves to be in the face of American people saying for numerous administrations, Iran is a problem. They have to be dealt with. Iran's a problem. They have to be dealt with. And then this man deals with them, and then all of a sudden you're complaining about him now. Right. It doesn't really make sense. There's a lack of consistency.
It certainly is. All right, Elliott Abrams was Trump's envoy to Iran in the first term, and he joins us now. And, sir, it's good to have you back on. The president showing some optimism here that this next layer down in the regime is a bit more stable. What are your thoughts on that?
I wish I could share the optimism, Rob. I think they're pretty fanatical. And I think the other problem is none of them's going to want to make a concession. You know, they're all newly in power. The first thing they don't want to do is make a concession, and then somebody's going to go after you inside that regime. So I'm really doubtful that these negotiations are going to come up with the kind of deal or the 15-point plan the president has, which is an excellent plan. I just don't share the optimism that we're going to find somebody there who's willing, in a sense, to bite the bullet and make the concessions they need to make.
That's that. I mean, I feel the same way. I also feel that they could just act and pretend and lie and cheat a deal the way they always have and try to just get away with something. And if you don't think that that's possible, and it seems like Rubio is along with you on that he feels like there's a probability that there's not going to be a change internally, that it's just we're going to have to just batter them until they submit, until there's a revolution in the country, until there's a new government. Is that a possibility, though? Can we actually get to that point with the way this war is being fought? Can you end this regime?
I don't think you can end the regime without putting, hundreds of thousands of troops in now, right now, at the end of the war. But we've really, really weakened this regime. It will fall. None of us can predict, is it a month or a year? Is it 5 years? But we're leaving a regime that's much, much weaker and an economy that's much, much weaker. And by the way, it'll be a lot weaker by Saturday, by this weekend, because we're starting to hit the economic targets.
You're starting to hit the economic target. I guess I don't think that's politically viable for the president to walk away. And even if there's just a last gasp of this regime still there, if we walk away, I think that's going to look like a failure. It's going to be a political disaster for him.
Yeah, he's got to make sure that, for one thing, the Strait of Hormuz is open and all the oil can move, which may mean taking some of those islands. It may mean taking part of the southern coast of Iran. But if the Strait of Hormuz isn't really open, freely open, the president's going to look like he did not win this war.
Is that something that we're going to be willing to do? I'm trying to figure how this thing is going to end, and I'm looking at it the same way you are, and I'm just trying to figure out what will the end of this look like, because he wants to be gone in a week or two.
Right.
You've heard him talk.
I'll tell you how I think it's going to end. I do not think it ends with some kind of lengthy negotiation of a treaty, which, as you just said, they're going to lie and cheat on anyway. I think it's going to end at a date, maybe a week from now or something like that, where the president says to them, okay, I'm going to stop hitting you. If you stop hitting anybody else, and the strait has to be open, there's no deal. They'll claim victory, or they'll say we've got everything we needed, and then we just stop. I don't think there'll be a signed agreement here.
You don't think there'll be a sign? And does Iran, what happens with the future in 5 years and 10 years? Does Iran start to rebuild all this? Even in the next couple of years, do they start to rebuild nuclear? And then they have a mark on us, a real big mark on us?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to start to rebuild while Donald Trump is president, because I think they know if he sees that, he'll hit them again. But what we should be doing meanwhile, policing, making sure that they don't start rebuilding, and at the same time doing whatever we can to help the people of Iran so that they can, in fact, get rid of this government that they hate. It's one of the most pro-American countries in the world.
Real quick, you've had some interesting comments here as a former envoy to this country. I want to ask you this finally, really quick. Do you think it was a mistake to go into Iran?
No. They were building a nuclear weapon. They were building a gigantic missile program. It had to be stopped. And if he didn't stop it now, it would be much worse in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years.
And probably defensible enough that we wouldn't be able to destroy it if we wanted to because of the ballistic program surrounding it.
Exactly.
Elliott Abrams, Trump's former envoy to Iran. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Alan West is a retired Army Lieutenant General, and he joins us now. And, sir, it's good to have you back on. I want to get your reaction to what we just heard from Elliott there and the idea that this is not a regime that will likely lay down its arms and change willingly. What do you think of that, and what do you think should be done?
Well, it's good to be with you, Rob. Thanks for the promotion. I was just a lieutenant colonel, but I think without a doubt,
sorry about that.
I appreciate the promotion. The check didn't come with it, though. I think without a doubt, the most important thing is that we have to look at the strategic imperatives that are necessary. Number one, we cannot allow them to have this intercontinental ballistic missile program that they proved they had, that they lied about, firing at Diego Garcia, the ballistic missiles, the drones, and the support to the Islamic terrorist groups like the Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, and others in the area. In the region. And we've got to make sure that we get those straits opened up, being the Straits of Hormuz, but also the Straits of Mandab, which is where you're finding the Houthis trying to hold it hostage by way of ballistic missiles they got from Iran. Look, back in 1997, I was stationed at Fort Bragg, and we did a simulation exercise about an airfield seizure and takedown of Bandar Abbas, which is located right there at the Straits of Hormuz. So it's interesting to see the 82nd Division Ready Brigade going there. And also you have the MEUs, the Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Capable. These are not invasionary type of formations. These are quick strike formations, limited capabilities and capacities. So I think that provides a little bit of ground offensive capability and leverage for the president and also for the CENTCOM commander.
What do you think happens here, sir, over the next couple of weeks? And can the president get out of this? Can the United States get out of this in a way where it doesn't look like this was a bad decision to go in?
Yeah, I think absolutely so. When we get the free flow of oil coming through the Straits of Hormuz, when we can make sure that the flow of material and shipping can go through the Straits of Al-Mandab. But let's remember that Barack Obama had us embroiled with Libya for 7 months, no war powers resolution. There was regime change that we got rid of Muammar Gaddafi. And what did we get? We got ISIS. We lost an ambassador, 2 former U.S. Navy SEALs, and a State Department worker. So that was not a picture of success either. So I think the president is on the right track. You're never going to get a signed agreement. I have to agree with Mr. Abrams on that with Iran, because they believe in the traditions of Muhammad, and anything they do, they're going to be lying anyhow.
I mean, it's scary because, you're looking at this thing and you're wondering, I mean, the Straits of Hormuz were open before this. And then you think about it like, I mean, Obama paid these people. They just bribed them to behave because they likely saw no better way out, did they?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. $17.7 billion between Obama terms 1, 2, and 3, which is the Biden term. And like you said, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the Iranian nuclear agreement, set them on the path for doing exactly what they have intended to do. This is a theocratic regime. They believe in the return of the 12th Imam, the Mahdi, and that occurs based upon a apocalyptic event, which is why they're marching toward having that devastating weapon. So I think right now we are degrading that ballistic missile capability capability and capacity. They have no Navy. They have no Air Force. And I think that's the most important thing. They'll be a toothless tiger.
Toothless tiger. Former Lieutenant Colonel Alan West. Sir, thank you so much. We appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Rob.
All right, there are wartime restrictions in effect across Israel, banning large gatherings and closing all holy sites in Jerusalem to worshipers. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where many believe that Jesus Christ was crucified, was forced to cancel its traditional Palm Sunday procession that draws thousands of Christians every year. The holy site, now the center of controversy. Israeli police yesterday blocking Catholic Cardinal Pizzaballa and a priest from reaching the church to privately celebrate Mass. The police saying the move came from special concern for their safety. This incited a lot of anger, critics calling it unacceptable, offensive, a violation of religious freedom. Our CEO, Chris Ruddy, asked Prime Minister Netanyahu in an interview what exactly happened. Take a listen.
The Latin Patriarch, the Catholic Archbishop, was denied the ability to say Mass on Palm Sunday. What really happened?
Well, what happened was that the Iranians have been firing missiles at the old city of Jerusalem, and the fragments nearly hit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So as a result, the Israeli security authorities said, okay, let's take out the worshipers right now because they'd be hurt. There's no protection there. And that was a general instruction, and that was the reason that a police officer on duty said, oh, okay, I'm applying it also to the Patriarch. Now, look, I think that wasn't, I can understand the concern for his safety, and that was the only concern. There was no malice here, no bad intention.
All right. Coming up here after the break, No Kings protests, one of the biggest collective freak shows in human history. We ask Antifa expert Andy Ngo just how much of this is American, how much of this is organic, coming up. And then later in news from the left, a Democrat mayor rips down a mural to a beautiful young woman murdered in cold blood.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Hungry Root is here, and I needed it because my fridge is super empty.
It's so easy to just whip together a quick, healthy meal.
Head to hungryroot.com for healthy groceries and simple recipes. Plus, get free veggies for life.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sonobella changed that.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation.
I decided to give Sonobella a try. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is our breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative that sculpts, tightens, and lifts your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside. And Lift EX is exclusively available at Sonobello. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever. Call to book your free consultation today.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
Millions of people out for the No Kings protests.
Millions are hitting the streets from coast to coast.
Millions of people across the country taking to the streets.
Millions of Americans from big cities, small towns.
The No Kings protest returned over the weekend. I know you saw it. Organizers say roughly 8 million people had nothing better to do than this nonsense. Isn't that amazing? And the left media, of course, can't get enough of it, painting them as millions of freedom warriors bucking a fascist regime. They got a lot of freedom for living under a fascist regime. In reality, it's just our national freak show. We do this semi-annually. The most deranged of us have all united around a hatred for the president and really a hatred for our prosperous nation. These people mostly hate the United States. They kind of want to tear it all down in the name of Marxist equity. Democrat Senator Mazie Hirono with the quote of the weekend. She actually put this on Twitter. Donald Trump is not, never will be, and has never been a king. Yeah, we know, Mazie. Thanks for reminding us of your IQ and reinforcing that these protests are completely meaningless. A huge waste of time. You could have had a weekend. Independent journalist Nate Friedman found the protest in New York to be quite white, which was odd for such a diverse city, so he asked this crazy lady about that.
It is not for black people, for people of color to get out on the street. They're at risk when they do that. If anybody's going to get arrested here, it's going to be a black person. It is not safe for them, and they don't need to participate. We need to walk in their name.
or they're just not as stupid as you are, lady, because what the hell are you doing on the street in the cold screaming no kings? And by the way, I walked the streets of New York today. I saw a lot of black Americans out there walking along. They're too scared to come out. The insufferable Hollywood elites joined, of course. Jimmy Kimmel was out on the streets with Senator Chris Murphy in Los Angeles. Why is Chris Murphy in L.A. is a great question. Bruce Springsteen performing on stage in Minneapolis. Get some more Botox, Bruce. Jane Fonda ranting about her own white guilt. De Niro with Al Sharpton and Big Tish. Here's how they all sounded.
The concept of no kings is a great rallying cry. When the crowds are chanting no kings, what I'm really hearing, as we all know, is no Trump.
The wife of Renee Good has asked me to read a statement, which I am honored to do.
Well, this past winter, federal troops brought death and terror to the streets of Minneapolis.
It's an exercise in retardation, as it always is. I think this one might have been the worst, though. Link Lauren is the host of On the Spot. Andy Ngo is the author of Unmasked, Inside Antifa's Radical Plan to Destroy Democracy. Good to have you both here. Link, how would you describe this spectacle that we keep having to watch?
These No Kings protests were absolutely pathetic. It's like they emptied the insane asylums and said, go outside, get some exercise and some fresh air and vitamin D. That was the one silver lining about No Kings, is that people who normally wouldn't get out and exercise were out on the streets having some camaraderie. But my thing is this, Kamala Harris was slotted in without a single primary vote. So if these people are going to say that President Trump is a fascist, a king, a dictator, you guys had no problem with that. You're also out on the street right now exercising your First Amendment right, and nobody is bothering you. So these people are just ridiculous hypocrites, Rob.
Yeah, no, and the funny thing is that they say no kings. These people would all embrace a left-wing king if they had one. They would absolutely love it. They'd love nothing more. They don't want us to have any freedoms in this country, especially on our side. Andy, the billionaires George Soros, Neville Roy Singham, people we talk about on this show a lot, prominent funders of organizations, far-left organizations that organized these No Kings protests. Wall Street Journal new op-ed titled Kings of Dark Money. The propaganda is well-funded, and Beijing couldn't be happier. The irony, Andy, that a lot of the money to fund this comes from a place that has a dictator at the top of the government.
Yeah, and I think the whole movement of No Kings
is it operates on deception. People have forgotten that not even a year ago, No Kings was linked to deadly violence when one of its so-called security, thinking that there was a MAGA threat in Utah, shot at a man and ended up killing one of the attendees. And people just moved on from that as if that's normal for these type of protests. And at the front of these demonstrations, you see people like Democrat politicians and celebrities. In New York City, the Attorney General, Letitia James. But just behind them, if you look at the footage, there were contingents of communists who were waving flags of the hammers and sickles and chanting about violent revolution. So they don't even hide their MO, and they're backed by billionaires and huge money in the infrastructure.
It is something. And just one more to you, Andy. I mean, how organic? I mean, if there's that much of this nasty money behind it, how organic is this protest? What would it be without Neville Roy Singham and George Soros and all of these major anti-American funders?
The nonprofits and the networks provide sort of the infrastructure for how people can get organized and get plugged in, and the information is shared out, as well as the propaganda. But I think people shouldn't underestimate the role of ideology and radicalization and frankly, brainwashing that happens to people who show up in the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. A lot of them are ideologues, and they don't hide their radical extremist agenda. There was violence that followed the No Kings protests in Portland, in Los Angeles, and other cities, as has happened last year.
Yeah. Want to show one more moment. Link, take a listen.
Who would you like to be the president?
Kamala Harris right now, but she didn't win.
We say no kings and no authoritarianism, but Kamala Harris, no one voted for her.
Yes, they did. Half the country voted for her, so let's not go there.
No one was voted for her to be the nominee.
Yes, they did.
Isn't that what, like, authoritarian?
You're going down the wrong road right now with me. I wouldn't go any further.
I mean, it was a point that was just made as we talked about it, Link, but the moment that that somebody contests to what they believe, they get really angry.
Well, it's interesting. These people definitely have some mental health issues. This does not look like a normal functioning adult in modern society, but this is true. Kamala Harris did not get a single primary vote. She was slotted in the last 107 days, and Democrats just accepted this, the way they pushed for lockdowns, more censorship, more surveillance, and they accepted a shadow government that was around Joe Biden controlling the auto pen and pulling the puppet strings. So you guys want to say President Trump is this dictator and this king, he's this fascist. Did y'all see what we had to go through to get the big, beautiful bill passed? He's anything but a king right now, but these people are just delusional. They have serious issues. And the last thing I'll say is this. If y'all loved Kamala Harris so much, why didn't you go vote for her? Because she lost the popular vote, the House, the Senate, every single swing state. Okay, so if there's all this love for Kamala, you didn't show up on November 5th.
Let's just hope Kamala has a comeback. I'd like to see more of that. Andy, No Link, Lauren, good to see you both. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Ilhan spoke at a No Kings rally this weekend, as you would expect, but she has bigger issues to deal with. As VP Vance confirms, she definitely committed immigration fraud. Is Ilhan actually going to get deported? That and the very dark details of her father's past in Somalia. All of them.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Doctor's Preferred Liver Defense is doctor developed to support your natural detox function with clinically validated, triple tested key ingredients to energize and renew your liver. Find Liver Defense in the supplement aisle at Walmart. Doctor's Preferred. Better science, better results.
My accountant, who uses unsecured email, has all my tax info. Tax forms have all the personal info thieves need to steal your identity. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points for identity theft. LifeLock, for the threats you can't control.
AI company Palantir makes critical decisions for governments around the world. In 2019, Palantir bought $50 million in gold in case of black swan events. Not surprising what followed. In 2020, a pandemic shut down the global economy. And in 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine. In 2023, we had a regional banking collapse. And in 2026, could a 1929-style market crash be the final straw? Give Patriot Gold Group a call at 888-528-4290 before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer 9 years in a row. Home of the no-fee-for-life IRA. Patriot Gold Group is patriots protecting patriots. Call now, 888-528-4290.
Stop, check this out. Our most advanced performance frame, Talon, is out. It's a bestseller. We just got it back in stock, and I want to show you a little bit about it. These come with our signature lost and broken protection, and you can try them risk-free for 30 days. Check them out at ShadyRays.com.
The pain is gone. It's gone. I was wheeled in. I couldn't even move 5 feet without the wheelchair. I was in awful pain.
Are you able to get onto the bed?
I doubt it.
No?
We went through the whole intake interview, did the MRI, x-rays. I was awake through the surgery, came back to recovery. I was there for 10 minutes, and I got up and I walked.
Venati succeeds where others fail.
The way you do anything is the way you do everything. Honor your word, shatter expectations, and give generously. These are the principles that built the finest, most functional, slim wallet in the world. Carry a proof wallet and be reminded of your pursuit of excellence every single day.
I came to this country as a refugee. To me, America was a beacon of hope. I arrived here when I was 12 years old. I could have never imagined the day would come when we were staring down at this kind of creeping authoritarianism in the United States of America.
Really? You've never met your father? You've never seen anything like this before? Because it was way worse. And we're going to tell you a story tonight. Our America-hating Somali Congresswoman Ilhan Omar there, doing what she always does, doing what she does best, crapping all over our country at a No Kings rally over the weekend. If this country does anything to try and stabilize itself, to make it more prosperous in this country, she is angry. Notice that. That's always the way she sounds. Anything that's good for the country and the fabric of the country, she hates. Why is that? President Trump calls Ilhan the ringleader of all the Somali fraud we've seen in recent months. And she has a different kind of fraud as well, according to the vice president. Take a listen.
Ilhan Omar definitely committed immigration fraud against the United States of America. She has been at the center of a lot of the worst fraudsters in the Somalian community.
For years, we have heard that Ilhan married her brother to get him into the United States, but the accusations against Ilhan and the family go a lot deeper, into a very, very ugly family. A 2019 investigation reports that Ilhan's father used false names to apply for asylum as members of the Omar family. Adding her father's name before applying for asylum was Nur Saeed Elmi Mohammed. In Somalia, Ilhan's father was reportedly a high-ranking official doing propaganda for the genocidal Marxist Somalian regime under Saeed Barre, one of the region's most brutal dictatorships. So her father was a Marxist propagandist as they tore through the country, killing anybody that would not support their cause. Does that not track perfectly? Committing a genocide against the Isaac clan group between 1987 and 1989 are the allegations, killing hundreds of thousands of people in Somaliland and northeast Somalia as well. And the allegation, again, is that her father was one of the chief propagandists of this movement and this slaughter. The regime also invaded Ethiopia in 1977 in their effort to create Greater Somalia, a war that the Somalians lost. Liz Collin is a Minnesota-based journalist for Alpha News. She's been at the forefront of exposing the Somali fraud in Minnesota. Gene Hamilton also with us, president of America First. legal. Gene, you can see Ilhan and her father. You can certainly see her in the politics and what she actually thinks of this country. These are really terrible human beings. The question is there a way to get her out of this country legally?
I think that there could be, based on her engaging in alleged marriage fraud after the fact. Now, look, it might be tougher with respect to her individual coming to the United States initially with her father. If they go after her father's lies, if they go after her family's lies, then perhaps there's a way to get at that. But the allegations, of course, are that she engaged in significant marriage fraud when she was an adult, when she was of age. And I don't want to get ahead of the government. I don't want to get ahead of the feds. But if that's what, in fact, the file says, then there certainly is a way.
And is there a statute of limitations on that, real quick, Gene, before I move over?
Look, there's no statute of limitations on committing fraud in the immigration process, especially in the naturalization process, which, of course, she's a citizen to become a member of the House of Representatives. So certainly there's ways to get at things.
So they just got to pull that. They got to find that file, pull it, and prove it, I guess. Liz, Tim Walz, who looked the other way in your state as the Somali community robbed our country blind, pulling billions of federal dollars through the state of Minnesota to themselves. Here he was on Saturday.
A special acknowledgement that we will never leave the side of our Somali Minnesotans. Our Somali Minnesotans, your great-grandchildren will still be here when that orange clown is in the dustbin of history.
What's your reaction to that? And to the people of Minnesota, how do you think they would react to that? Obviously, his political career is over, but he's still defending this thing that he allowed.
It never ends with our governor in Minnesota, that's for sure, Rob. And I will say this file on Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is quite thick at this point. I was just going to interject with more allegations that have been made against her about the fact that she perhaps is not a U.S. citizen at all. This is because she claimed that she naturalized through her father. We've done extensive reporting on this at the time she was 17. However, magically, once these allegations came to light, her birth date changed because it turns out she was actually 18, therefore not eligible to naturalize through her father and apply for citizenship at that period. There was someone running against her years ago that brought this forward, and it was 2 days after a social media post basically showing how she was claiming that it's not possible for her to be a U.S. citizen under this current birth date she was giving as a House representative at the time. So you could see in just the course of 2 days how her websites all changed. And those screenshots still exist to this day. So there are many questions that remain unanswered about the fact that perhaps she's not even a U.S. citizen at all.
Gene, your reaction to that, and how does that change your calculus?
Well, look, what my reaction to all of this is just to emphasize the importance of vetting and screening on the front end. This is why you don't bring in people into the United States, because of the paperwork that you don't know who they are, because the paperwork can be all over the place. People can lie. They can lie about when they were born, who their parents were, who their family was. And of course, things have improved since she came in the 90s. There is a certain amount of genetic testing that goes into things now that didn't used to be available then. But it just goes to show you why it's so important to vet, to screen, to stop people coming in on the front end, because you could be dealing with avowed Marxists 2 decades, 3 decades later, who you let in, who were lying about who they were, and you're stuck with them for at least some lengthy period of time.
It is something else. That's such a great point. I want to just tell you guys something before I let you go. The Republic of Somaliland, that's one of the places that her father allegedly, that his group went into and slaughtered the people. He was the propagandist for that Marxist regime. Somaliland, one of the places that got the brunt of that hate and that slaughter. That's an independent state that broke off from Somalia. They posted our interview with Benny Johnson from last week, and they wrote on the post, and this is its own little state. Deportation, they said, please, you're sending the princess, talking about Ilhan, back to her kingdom. Extradition, say the word. So this is a state here that would love to have Ilhan Omar. Just an interesting post we caught on Twitter. I got to leave it there. Liz, Collin, thanks so much. Gene Hamilton, good to see you. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks.
Another major player on Wall Street fleeing, Zoran Mamdani and New York. How the socialist plan, I should say, is blowing up in his face. That's all it takes.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 92 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the 3 videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
To a hacker, your tax return isn't just paperwork, it's a gold mine. Your social security number and bank data are their biggest payday of the year. Old antivirus software can't keep up. You need PCmatic. Our default deny technology blocks every single threat that hasn't been pre-approved. If we don't know it, we block it. Secure your return right now. Buy PCmatic antivirus and we will give you PCmatic VPN for free. American-made security for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Visit PCmatic.com.
Hi, I'm Sally with SellMyPolicy.com, the fast concierge service here to help you sell your life insurance policy for cash now. Our experienced team makes it fast and easy for you to get your offer. Use the money however you want. Cover healthcare costs, pay off debt, or take the trip of a lifetime. Use the funds for supplemental retirement income, investments, or home improvements, or give money to loved ones now rather than later. John sold his policy for $590,000 in cash, which he used to pay for health care. And Cheryl sold her policy for $90,000 in cash and used it to supplement her retirement income. If you are over 65 with a life insurance policy of $100,000 of coverage up to $50 million of coverage, then you may qualify. With Sell My Policy, some people choose to sell all or just part of their policy so they can access cash now while also keeping coverage in place for their loved ones.
It's easy to find out what your policy could be worth today. Call 800-961-7355. That's 800-961-7355. Or visit sellmypolicy.com.
Why lapse or surrender your policy? Sell it and you can stop making premium payments. You may receive substantially more cash than what your insurance carrier will offer. Plus, you'll get paid fast. Arthur sold his policy for $84,000 in cash, which he used to help reduce his debt. SellMyPolicy.com has a large network of funders. That means more money in your pocket. If you or a loved one has a policy, call now. Trusted by seniors, there's no obligation to sell. Find out what your policy is worth today.
Talk with a policy expert now to see how much cash you could receive. Call 800-961-7355. That's 800-961-7355. Or visit sellmypolicy.com. Sellmypolicy.com.
I think it's incredible. I mean, it shows that everyday Americans still have the power to organize and fight for their communities, and they can have more say in this country than the richest man in the world.
A proud AOC in 2019 celebrating after costing her city 25,000 jobs. That's how it looked in her mind, right? Running Amazon out of town and all of that potential work and prosperity, a very common theme, big companies fleeing the idiots that we let run our major cities. Florida luring in major hedge funds like Citadel and Elliott Management in recent years. A Bloomberg report found that from the start of 2020 through the end of March 2023, the real thick of COVID, more than 370 investment companies in places like New York and California moved their headquarters to a new state with less taxes, of course, and less regulations. California was seen as the worst. Oracle, Chevron, Charles Schwab, Hewlett-Packard, Tesla, SpaceX, moving along. Texas, Tennessee, Florida, a number of different places these companies go to. A report finding New York City lost nearly 5,000 businesses in 2025. 5,000 in 1 year. ahead of Mamdani's win in November. That reality is why the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, initially fought so hard against Zoran Mamdani's absurd plans.
But maybe the first step should be go down to Palm Beach and see who you can bring back home, because our tax base has been eroded. So I philosophically don't have a problem. It is like I have to look at the fact that we are in competition with other states who have less of a tax burden on their corporations and their individuals. Wall Street businesses looking at Texas, they're not going there because they have a nicer governor. I know that for sure. But they're going there because of the tax rate.
Yeah, that was a sensible version of Hochul. She's moved on to sounding more like Mamdani every day. And the newest Wall Street giant that's weighing a move south is Apollo Global Management, beginning the process of leaving New York. One of the largest asset management companies in the country. This city will soon lose. Vickie Paladino, New York City Councilwoman. Jonathan Corpina, Senior Managing Partner at Meridian Equity Partners. Good to have you both here. Jonathan, it's like we're fighting every day against our own government to try and keep this city strong and capable.
It sounds like we're fighting against common sense here, right?
All the time.
We talk about the city and the city budgets and the expenditures needed to run this city, and that comes from tax dollars and it comes from the businesses that are within New York. And if this city continues to force businesses out of New York City, it's going to be a losing battle for the people who remain in New York City. I was just down in Palm Beach the last few days, and give them credit. The amount of advertising that they're doing, both from the residential side and the commercial side, to lure people and businesses down to that specific area is overwhelming. Yeah. I was blown away by the amount of advertising that's going on there. And let's just talk about, Apollo's not the first that's leaving New York, and they're certainly not going to be the last. Yeah. This trend has happened for quite some time now.
Yeah, Councilwoman, I mean, the arrogance of the liberal politicians in these blue states to think that it doesn't matter if their money leaves, that they don't have any options to leave. They're so stupid, and the arrogance that comes with it.
I think that's really the most aggravating part about this, too, is the arrogance, as you pointed out. Sitting where I'm sitting right now, the anger that is perpetuating in and throughout the city is enormous. He's overplayed his hand. The people will begin to leave. The business leaves, so do the people. And, $900 billion company with a cushy office up on the Upper West Side. It's been doing business here for how long? I don't even know. All I could say is this: so long as he keeps going down the path he's going, and he will, because he's arrogant and he's stupid. So we put that all together, and the people that are behind him, the only person that waved the white flag a little bit was the comptroller a number of weeks ago, when he said, we're falling in the ratings and this is what's going to happen. He tried to shed some light on it. Zoran, to his disability of being able to see logic and common sense, he's not capable. These people look at these corporations as if they're villains. They don't understand that they are the economic powerhouse that makes New York great. Yep. So how do you destroy a city in less than 100 days? You elect Zoran Mamdani as your mayor and his cohorts that work with him. Yep. I'm very curious to see here how our city council finance committee handles this. Make the budget cuts.
Right. They can't just run into debt like the federal government. They got to balance it every year. I'm very curious to see how they do that myself. And Zoran's election is a reminder of just how many people everywhere we live don't really have any idea how it all works and are very easily fooled. I got to leave it there. Vickie Paladino, Jonathan Corpina, good to have you both. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
A major legal victory for Elon Musk against a ridiculous judge. Up next.
What if your GLP-1 for weight loss was as easy to take as a mint? Small, discreet, and easy. Think about that. No needles. This is compounded tirzepatide, a mint-flavored tablet designed to fit into your daily routine. You simply let it dissolve under your tongue. No mixing, filling, or storing your own syringes. Tirzepatide helps curb appetite and supports healthier eating by reducing cravings, including for sweets and carbs. And when your appetite feels under control, it can make it easier to eat less and move intentionally towards your weight loss goals. If weight loss has been on your mind, this may be the needle-free option you've been looking for. A simple daily tablet, as easy to take as a mint. Getting started is fast and surprisingly accessible. Just complete a quick online physician consultation. Here's how.
Save $50 with promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim. That's promo code SLIM at noneedles.com/slim.
You're looking at Carvana's newest and proudest customer. So proud that we're teaming up to create Shackvana.
We are? We are.
Shackvana will be 100% online so customers can shop from anywhere.
That's so Shackvana.
About time you caught up. On Shackvana.com, customers can shop tens of thousands of vehicles.
Love it.
And they'll get 7 days to love their ride or their money back. Visit Shackvana or Carvana and buy your car today.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Most investors believe their IRA, 401k, and bank accounts are reliable and safe. But what if our economy becomes so dire that you're restricted from accessing your own money? The fact is that should your bank be in trouble for holding bad loans, the burden could fall on you to help bail them out. Even more concerning is that U.S. financial regulations allow banks to impose withdrawal limits on your hard-earned savings. But there's something you can do about it. Our team at Swiss America has a report called The Secret War on Cash. Learn how to protect yourself with assets that can remain outside the control of banks and other financial institutions. For over 40 years, Swiss America has been one of the most trusted metal firms in the country. So don't wait. Call or text the number on your screen today for financial peace of mind in these uncertain times.
Sweet new boots, man. Where'd you get them from?
Thanks, I got them from
GoBets.com. Why did your voice just...
Natalie, you got the tickets?
Yep, I got them from.
There's no way her voice...
Hungry Root is here, and I needed it because my fridge is super empty. It's so easy to just whip together a quick, healthy meal.
Head to hungryroot.com for healthy groceries and simple recipes. Plus, get free veggies for life.
He's breathing. Okay, we're good.
Nearly 5,000 people die from choking each year. That's frightening. I'm Dr. Ben Carson.
And I'm Arthur Lee. Well, there are ways to help prevent choking. Accidents do happen. That's why I invented the Life Pack.
Anyone can use this device, and it can save a life in seconds.
Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple. Please order one for your home, office, car, anywhere you eat.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Providence Mayor Brett Smiley calling for the removal of an unfinished mural that was set to honor the slain Irina Zarutska, that Ukrainian girl that was brutally murdered on a North Carolina train last year by that career criminal DeCarlos Brown. Remember that horrible, horrible video? This Democrat mayor calling the mural misguided and divisive, claiming he wants to bring his community together by taking this down. The project's funding reportedly included a donation from Elon Musk. Yeah, it's divisive to showcase exactly what people like you are doing to us with all of this ridiculous immigration into this country and with the lawlessness, what you've done to prosecutions in your cities. All the chaos that they have brought up, they want to try and conceal. They don't want any murals around for the poor, young, innocent girls that are being slaughtered on a train in front of dozens of people, just bludgeoned in the neck and killed. Next up, Eric Swalwell, the smelly frat boy, is running for governor, and he's very angry that the Washington Post is reporting that Kash Patel is looking to make a move in regards to that big spy fiasco he had with his little girlfriend Fang Fang when he was screwing around on his wife. Sources saying Patel is focused on trying to bring a criminal case in this, reassigning multiple agents in San Francisco to work on the matter. Eric held a press conference today. Take a listen.
This case is closed. The Bureau said over 10 years ago, all we did was help. But this effort to weaponize the FBI against the president's political enemy at a time that we are at war shows a distraction. It shows an obsession with going after the president's political opponents.
So, again, this is one of the guys that, I mean, how political could he have possibly been? He led so many of the assaults against Trump, trying to rid him of politics, keep him from being elected. And now he's screaming and crying. I love it. And finally, an update to the story we brought you last week. Delaware Judge Kathleen McCormick stepping away from multiple cases involving Elon Musk after she showed clear bias by liking a LinkedIn post that was cheering on the other side of the case. Just ridiculous. She filed a motion saying that the recusal rests on a false premise, that she supported this post about Mr. Musk, which she in fact does not support. She basically claimed that somebody must have just liked it and it wasn't her. But she did decide to reassign these cases away from herself. She was forced to, essentially. Love that. Wait till you see this spectacle in Canada. Up next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
Here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report.
From blizzards to downpours to windstorms or heat waves, no matter where you live, Leaf Filter keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Mike Hammond here, founder of Signal Relief. Meet Dr. Beth Dupree, breast cancer surgeon for over 35 years.
In my surgical career, I have treated thousands of patients, and finding effective pain relief has always been a priority. Believe me, I was skeptical, but Signal Relief caught my attention because it actually works. Clinical trials show over 85% of participants felt relief within 72 hours, with nearly half noticing a significant difference in just 15 minutes. Just place it near or above wherever you have the pain, whether it's your back, your shoulder, your neck, or your knee. Signal Relief Patch brings proven relief. I recommend it to my patients, family, and friends, and I get to witness and experience their pain relief firsthand, and that brings a smile to my face.
Join the hundreds of thousands who have experienced relief with the Signal Relief Patch, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. Trust Dr. Dupree and me. The patch works.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Newsmax, you like Newsmax. I like it too. Newsmax, you like Newsmax. I like it too.
It's true. Millions of Americans agree with President Trump, and they're switching to Newsmax. They're watching great shows with Greta, Carl Higbie, Rob Schmitt, Finnerty, and more. If you're tired of big media, start watching Newsmax. It's free to start. Go to NewsmaxPlus.com for immediate access. Get all of President Trump's most important events live. Imagine watching Mike Huckabee's Israel Report, our Melania documentary, Clint Eastwood, Charlie Kirk specials, even the movie Jesus of Nazareth by Franco Zeffirelli. Once you start Newsmax Plus, you won't stop. So try it for free. Go to NewsmaxPlus.com, then download the app. It's easy. So make the switch to Newsmax Plus today.
And finally tonight, a political convention in Winnipeg for Canada's new Democrat Party. Opportunity for the craziest progressives to all come together in one room. And it fell into chaos after woke activists started arguing over equity cards, which gave holders priority speaking rights, meaning they could jump ahead of others in line if they were the biggest victim in this Victim Olympics left-wing fiasco. Take a look.
Hi, Akua Frimpong, pronouns she, her. I want everyone to be mindful that these cards for individuals like myself who identify as a Black woman have no value outside of this space.
There's a point of privilege on microphone 1, then we'll go to microphone 3.
I was standing here with my gender equity card before you called on the previous speaker. That's my point of privilege that I would like to raise.
I will explain the speaking order, which is fixed, that I cannot amend.
Finity's up next. I mean, it's so embarrassing that we're even related to these people as the same species.
That's just as a species, but like 1993 Sylvester Stallone Demolition Man. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
That is what this is like. It's reality in Canada. Rob, we'll see you tomorrow, bud. Finity starts right now.
We stand in solidarity with our indigenous siblings, knowing that the U.S. will never be free.
They just murdered over 10 people. Yeah. Innocent Christians. Yeah. On Palm Sunday.
There is only one solution. There is only one solution.